The 88-meter Maltese Falcon was built for an American venture capitalist by Perini Navi, and when it was launched, it was the largest private sailing yacht in the world. But more importantly, it incorporated some extraordinary design features, including the DynaRig from Jerry Dykstra. But the exterior styling of this vessel and the amazing interior of the vessel were done by Ken Freivokh, who is the subject of our podcast today. Hello and welcome to the Yacht Channel's first podcast, where I'm very pleased to tell you that we're going to be chatting today with one of the top super yacht designers in the world, Ken Freivokh. He'll be speaking to us from his studio in the River Hamble on the south coast of England. By way of background, I first met Ken over 20 years ago when I was managing the Sunseeker dealership in Mexico for Camper Nicholson's, and Ken was the interior designer for all of the Sunseekers, which were incredibly popular and still are. But he's gone on to bigger and better things, as we'll get into today. So in reading about Ken to prepare for our chat today, I learned for the first time that he was raised in Los Angeles. And he studied architecture and engineering in Peru prior to moving to the UK, where he attended the Royal College of Art and picked up a master's in design degree. So now let's zoom into Ken's studio in the River Hamble and start the conversation. Hello, Ken, and welcome to the Yacht Channel. I did an intro, and I mentioned some of your background. Maybe we could start with that, because I didn't realize that you grew up in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was born there, and I was there until about 7 years old.
But then you studied in Peru, it said.
That is correct, yes. I initially studied architecture there, and then I got a scholarship, a Duke of Edinburgh scholarship, to come over to England, to the Royal College of Art, which is the premier postgrad school in Europe. And again, initially, I was more involved with buildings, but I quickly became more interested and explored the possibility of joining the industrial design school, as they had all the amazing machinery, lathes, and more technical. You know, I was always more attracted to the more technical parts of design, which eventually was what drifted me over to be involved with yachts.
Well, just as a side note, I went to the National Film School out in Beaconsfield.
Right.
Due to the British government, we had phenomenal facilities. I was very lucky as a foreigner to...
No, it's a shame that sometimes the local students don't appreciate quite how amazing the facilities are. It was quite difficult to get into the Royal College, but once you're in, it's almost as if the people that allowed you in will not admit they maybe made a mistake. So some of the students are quite dedicated and some are quite relaxed.
How did you transition into yachts?
Well, I was working as an architect and industrial designer, but I was doing some sailing and moved up to a quarter-ton racing yacht, which I agreed to buy on the proviso that I could modify it. And once that was done, everybody after me wanted my version of that model. So the company asked me to design the rest of the range. And then that was seen by other companies. I think it was Fairline. And they asked me to design their motorboats. And then I was headhunted by Sunseeker International, and I was the exclusive designer for them for about 13 years.
I think that's when I first met you. I ran the Sunseeker dealership in Mexico a long time ago, and when Hans Wahlberg was there, and you and I believe Don Shedd did the hulls, and you did the interiors.
That's correct. What's interesting, it was when I started, which was quite some time ago, there were very few even drawing boards. So it's quite amazing how the progression went there. In terms of current projects, we have a couple of really interesting ones. We have a 74 meter that is nearing completion in Turkey at Turquoise. And that is for a South American customer. Very, very interesting. Quite unusual features. Some of them relate to his interests. He has a vineyard as well. And so we had to develop a wine cellar, for example, on the as an integral part of the upper deck saloon, which is an interesting challenge. And another project that's progressing was one that was started no less than 12 years ago now. We did the design of an 88-meter motor yacht, and the owner decided that perhaps it would be a very competitive option to try and get it built in South America. So the project started there. It was an American shipyard based in the north of Chile. It was Marco Chilena, in the sort of north of Chile, pretty much in the desert. It never rains there at all.
Ken, I've been there. If they have a hole in the roof, they don't fix it because it doesn't matter.
No, exactly. There is no concern, certainly, about the weather. And interestingly enough, the level of workmanship in terms of actually working with the steel plates and aluminum is very good, because their background was tuna boats, if you want to, big fishing boats, which don't get fair. So they actually have to get the shape of the plates good enough that without using fillers and paste and so on, it still has to be acceptable.
They were beautiful hulls. They were 80-meter seiners. He was doing a sea trial when I happened to be there, and we went out into those big Pacific rollers, and the seakeeping was fantastic.
In fact, the hull that was used for the 88 meter was one, a development of one of their hulls with hopefully the same very good seakeeping. I think that the Chileans ran into trouble, or Marco Chilena, and so the hull was towed, and at the moment it's proceeding full steam ahead.
So it's with Golden Yachts in Athens.
That's correct.
Can we talk a little bit about Maltese Falcon, because that's such an interesting breakthrough project? Was that the first one that you did for Mr. Perkins?
No, not at all. We met Tom. He approached us when he was, as you probably know, he was a very, very keen sailing racer, yacht racing, and he decided he needed what he called a tender to attend the races and use as a base. So he approached us quite out of the blue. He just, I suddenly got a phone call from this strange American, just saying, he had seen my work. He liked what he saw. Would I be available to see him? I said, yes, I think so, of course. And he said, all right, I'll be there in 45 minutes. And he appeared on his McLaren F1. And the moment I saw the car, I thought, well, this is serious.
So he arrived at your door?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely so. And it started a very amazing relationship, because obviously we did that tender was the yacht Atlantide. We found one of the Dunkirk little ships that was lying in Malta, and we pretty much chainsawed the top of it and restyled it, a new interior, all in Art Deco, 100% Art Deco. He was very pleased with that. It was launched. It was finished in England at Camper Nicholson. And not long after we finished that, he rang and he says, are you up to another project? And he said, I want, a big sailboat. He had Mariette at the time. He had been using Andromeda Ladea, which is a Perini Navi, when he wasn't racing, and then Mariette and Atlantide when he was racing. But he wanted to do a bit more world cruising and he wanted to innovate. I mean, he was a risk taker, venture capitalist. He wanted to try some new ideas, and I guess he wanted, I guess he considered to be an imaginative designer that could understand that he just didn't want a run-of-the-mill project. And he had heard, and I had also seen that there was a hull at the Perini Navi base in Tuzla in Turkey, which had been started quite a few years before and ground to a halt. We went to see it, and there was a little bit of repeat of what happened with Atlantide, and that he turned to me and said, "Can we keep some of that superstructure?" And I said, "Not really. I think we need the chainsaw again, but certainly we can keep that really elegant, a little bit fine. It wasn't very beamy, so we always knew it was going to be a little bit tender, but probably very efficient." And so he agreed with Perini Navi to purchase that hull, which would then also give us a sort of advantage of a year and a half, and in terms of the speed of the build. And then it was a question of discussing what can we do that's rather special and different. Are we stuck with the normal sort of sail arrangements? And Jerry Dykstra had offered, 2 or 3 different sail options, and one of them was the DynaRig, which was the rig that was eventually adopted. But yeah, it was an incredible relationship, because what we did, we couldn't have done with in quotes, a normal or less adventurous owner. And the relationship with the rest of the team was also quite special. So obviously it ended up being quite a groundbreaking project.
The things that you did with carbon fiber, as far as I know, nobody else had ever gone to that extent.
Exactly. I mean, we took that right through. So as you went into the yacht, we used quite a bit of carbon fiber internally, and at the bridge and in some key areas. In the atrium, we were very anxious to express, if you want, the structure and express what the yacht was about and the mast. So, that view you just had behind you, where it looks at the atrium. Actually, that's another view that I see behind you, which is the dining room, and that is a very good typical example of a different way to look at something, because that was a skylight on top of the dining table, and you would normally just have a round skylight and then some sort of a blind that goes from side to side. And instead, I proposed to Tom, I said, why don't we do it the same as a camera, have an iris, the shutter of a camera, and make it open and close automatically that way, which is what exactly we did on that particular feature. But moving to this multi-level atrium, I was very anxious to be able to see that, yeah, exactly, see the mast right through all the levels, and also achieve some sort of vertical integration between the various decks. So it didn't feel as if to go from deck A to deck B, you had to go through a corridor to a little staircase and go up, and then you were on the next deck up. Here you were traveling through this amazing space, that contained the mast, that contained the spiral staircase that surrounded the mast, and you just felt, in a single huge space. And that applied to almost the whole philosophy of how that interior worked. Instead of having doors, we, in most cases, had moving walls between something like the dining room. In fact, the view you're showing right now was one great big challenge for a team from Germany, because I wanted those sliding doors, what we sometimes call the patio doors at the back of the yacht. I wanted them to completely disappear at the touch of a button. We had designed an inside-out bar, half of it open to inside, half out. But when the doors disappeared, which is what I was trying to achieve, you just weren't aware what's outside and what's inside. So it was one big continuum, one huge space, with very few restrictions, if you want. Tom had a collection of art in Plumpton in his moated house in England. And so I went there with him. We chose what paintings, he would like to have on the yacht. And we actually designed a number of the spaces specifically to suit the paintings. And in some cases, we took some liberties, like the painting that you can see there. We actually worked on the frame of it and curved it so it actually would fit the slightly curved surface facing the atrium.
Then out of this, presumably Black Pearl?
It is strange it took so long. I thought once Maltese Falcon was launched and it even won races and proved that it could go across the oceans, it proved that it could be almost handled single-handed sailing, that a number of other owners would maybe jump on the bandwagon, but there were some inquiries, but typically the reaction was, well, I don't want to copy Tom Perkins. And, my reaction was, well, you're copying everybody else, why not do a development of that concept? And eventually the Black Pearl came, the owner called me and we did about 2 years of work together to develop the concept of that, using the same or very similar sort of rig. And eventually we prepared the tender documentation and Oceanco sort of got the contract to build that. That yacht is out there doing very well, very efficient. And I think the shipyards, the likes of Perini Navi, for example, and a couple of the other shipyards, they're all very keen to embark on projects using the DynaRig, or what's called the Falcon rig now. And I'm sure we will see more of it.
Yeah, you would think so, with everybody more concerned about the environment and
almost nothing more, greener, if you want, than sailing, because you can have green technology, but if you don't have to even turn an engine to leave your mooring, and you can go across the Atlantic using just the wind, then surely is a very promising way to do it with minimum carbon footprint and very much on the green side.
Do these boats generate electricity while they're under sail? Do they have
Yes, well, certainly in Black Pearl we did study a number of, if you want, the props that rotate and effectively generate some electricity at the expense of maybe a knot in speed, or a very slight drop in speed because of the extra resistance. Related technologies, we're talking about sails that would have a layer, if you want, a photovoltaic film attached to the sails, so they would also generate electricity as a sort of giant solar panels. One part of the work we do, which extends beyond just design, is everything. When we were working on the Falcon, everything had to be revolutionary and different and custom. So Tom wanted to have two 10-meter tenders I designed them, and I found an outfit, a builder that I knew, but 3/4 of the way along the process, the builder was going bankrupt, and I ended up purchasing the assets of that company because I could see that there's a gap in the market for more adventurous tenders, more elegant, better fitted out, more in keeping with the amazing super yachts that people were starting to build. And so we started Pasco International. That's now been going about 12 years. I have about 90 people on board, and I guess it's the premier super yacht tender builder at the moment in the world.
So where are they?
That's in the Hamble River in England.
Oh, it is. So right where you are.
Exactly. So I could be designing something, send a drawing across the courtyard to Pasco, and probably two hours later, one of the workmen will come back and tell me it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You had some other images there. We've obviously tried, different breakthroughs, if you want. Some of them have happened and some haven't. I guess naval architects and shipyards are very set on having almost a post and beam solution to the structures, a bit like they used to build houses or they still build houses. I've been interested to develop a structure that is much more monolithic, torsionally more resistant, and to provide greater spans and more interest to the inside. So you have that. And the other thing is to use glass in greater quantities. Glass can be, they can achieve amazing things with glass now. It can be structurally as strong and not stronger than the steel plate. And obviously it gives you panoramic views and creates a exactly. So there you have the equivalent of a Virendel beam, which is that zigzag thing with the sections of the beam that are inert part of it, sort of not taken out, if you want, and that's what's giving you the transparency, but you still have the strength and the rigidity.
Panes of glass can also be generating electricity.
Yeah, again, that is new technology. That is, some of it is available now, and some of it we know is going to become available. So we've made provision.
What trends do you see in the industry right now? Where do you think things are going?
Interesting that there's more of an awareness, if you want, that you don't have to have a yacht that looks the same as what was built the year before or whatever. So a number of owners tend to be more open, to new shapes. So, if design details like plumb bows or reverse bows, yachts that can transform, open up much more to the ocean. So when you're in a safe anchorage, you can open the beach club with shell doors that open as balconies. You can drive the tender into an internal swimming pool, for example. So you could have a salt swimming pool and a sweetwater swimming pool on board. I think the possibilities are great. The yachts have been getting bigger and bigger. I think, in my opinion, some of them are just almost too big. So I think some of the owners that maybe were building 120, 140 meter super yachts are now looking at projects where they maybe have an 80 meter or 70 meter super yacht, which will do almost everything the bigger yacht was able to do. But in parallel, have an explorer or support vessel, which they can then use alongside. Can go ahead, it can carry the toys, it can carry some of the supernumeraries, the support staff.
And what advice would you give to young people that would like to become yacht designers?
Well, I think that their imagination fly and try different things, because if some of them are worthwhile, it'll open some doors to maybe the more adventurous and interesting owners. So, you know, A, they will get the work, and B, they will be working with the more interesting people that could take their careers further.
In the age of COVID, you're keeping busy, obviously, and you've got a lot of projects that are ongoing. How do you think this is going to affect the industry overall? Is it going to slow us down beyond temporarily?
No, I think only at a temporary level. Obviously, we have experienced certain issues with the supply chain, like, on the tenders, for example, some of the engines are made by Volvo. Volvo was, is closed until September, because more on the automotive side, but that happens to be the engines that are also used for some of the boats. Some of the windscreens came from Italy. Italy for a period was closed, so that delayed some supplies. Fenders came from Holland. It's a multinational industry, so the supply chain was certainly affected. But in terms of future projects and future work, I just don't see an impact other than at the level of the middle ground leisure boats. So the owners of super yachts, they never seem to be that affected, or certainly not to the extent that it stops their projects.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken, for taking the time and sharing your thoughts. And we'll be talking with you again in the future, I hope, checking in on new projects that you're up to.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice to discuss them and to try and see other people's point of view and how they imagine the industry is moving. But certainly there's a lot of interest, and it's a great industry and a great combination of aesthetics with, utility and purpose. So certainly I enjoy it, and I hope some of the owners working with us will do too. Thank you very much, Paul.
All right, and I'm going to put a link down at the bottom to your website, which is fantastic. You get so much information on there, and hopefully it'll start some conversations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That concludes our podcast for today, and there are some links here for connections, as I mentioned, and also to subscribe to the podcast. Upcoming, we have some very interesting chats that we're going to have, one with a captain who's here in Newport for the season chartering. We are also talking to a former captain who is now a port agent, who will have, I hope, some good insights into what we can expect in the Caribbean for cruising this next season. And we have some other really interesting naval architects and designers that have signed up, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.